Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors. Wherever you are in the world, I do hope you're having a good day. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. This is episode 49. Today, I had the immense pleasure, fun lady, Sophie Coulthard, who is a workplace well-being expert. She basically is a co-founder of FidlLeaf. She is a speaker and author, formerly a podcast host, but she'll be getting back on that for sure. Yes, basically, what we talked about today is what workplace well-being might look like when we all go back to work after the lockdown has finished. It was a very interesting conversation. We touched on many different points, and got a little bit of insight into the wedding cake theory. Anyway, sit back, enjoy the show, and thank you for being here. Haha, peace. Yes. Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. I do hope you're having a good day. Woo! Hello, welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. This is episode 49. Today I have Sophie Coulthard on. How can I put it? She is a workplace well-being specialist, co-founder of FidlLeaf. She's a speaker, a podcast host, and even an author. My God, that makes me feel lazy. But nevertheless, rather than me going waxing lyrical, going on about it, how are you today, Sophie?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks, Miwa. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure's all mine. Welcome to the show. Yes. Reason why I brought you on today, with regards to all what's going on with the world of lockdown and everything like this, workplace well-being, it was one way, and now it's going to be another. I just wanted to talk about how workplace well-being was before and how you might see it going in the future.
Great place to start. I think, and I think it's really interesting as well when you think of the concept of workplace well-being and what people might think it is, and it's kind of something is it a bit fluffy, and what actually is it, and how do we measure it, and I think it becomes something that becomes almost convoluted, and people don't really know what it is or what they should be doing about it. And I think that most people, when they think about workplace wellbeing, if they've maybe worked in a company that's talked about it before, they might be thinking, I think originally when we first workplace wellbeing came into the arena, let's say, which was probably back in the early 2000s, was probably when companies like Google and Facebook were creating these offices with, breakout areas with ping pong tables and bean bags and beer fridges, and it was almost like it was almost like a culture development thing. Aren't we a cool place to work? People like working here. We make them happy. That is workplace well-being. And then I think it started to develop a bit more than that, and people were realizing that beanbags were not really addressing a lot of things. Sorry if sirens go past, by the way, because I am in London. I think you're in London as well.
Yes, I am. Quite fortunately, it's quiet in my part of London. I'm in North London. I don't know what part of London.
I'm in Putney, South London, but I'm on quite a main road. So sometimes when the sirens go past, then that you
have my
noise.
sympathies for living in South London. It's okay.
So I think it then started to develop, and lots of companies were coming out with things like perks. So they were saying these are the sorts of things that make employees happy, discounts, gym memberships, and a lot of the focus was on maybe health in terms of fitness, and also healthy lifestyle, whether that's fresh fruit in the office, or it could be something like perks such as pizza on a Friday, that kind of thing. But I would definitely say that within the last at least 12 months, workplace wellbeing has started to move into more of a direction of perhaps mental health and more awareness of mental health in the workplace. People are introducing workplace mental health champions or well-being champions. And this has started definitely to take it, what I would say, probably more in the right direction of actually let's address what's really going on rather than papering over with beanbags. Beanbags are great, but they're not really going deep enough, I don't think, for today. Then obviously with the recent situation, coronavirus hits, and it becomes even more important because so many people are now probably, they say, I think 1 in 4, 1 in 5 people have experienced mental health issues within the workplace. Perhaps now the other 3 or 4 people who've perhaps not experienced mental health issues in the workplace are now starting to feel something or have had a moment or a wobble at some point during the last few months for whatever reason, and maybe that's kind of heightened the awareness of why workplace wellbeing is so important.
Yeah, you made mention of like companies like Google coming over and Facebook, and that's where quite a sort of lot of their ethos is sort of like bleeding over from. But what I tend to find when you hear about what these companies are like to work for, it is brutal hours, tight deadlines, and that, like, you might be getting a free lunch and a nice breakout area, but you're really sort of pushed to the edge. Like, how do you think that sort of differs from like sort of mainstream UK companies now?
I mean, to be honest, I worked for a company myself. I've worked for a few companies that have done similar things. They're sort of, whether they're new tech companies or sales company, I think it's very prolific in sales companies, that we expect you to work. Sorry, my Google Google thing just started talking. Sorry, we are having having issues.
No, you know what? All I've got to simply say is I mentioned Google on here like a second time, and it's inactivated. My name is Duncan Davison. I don't live in London. I live in Scotland. Yeah,
they're always listening. So these types of companies, I think there's lots of workplaces in the UK where people are expected to work quite long hours. They're expected to be in the office early, leaving late. Yes, but you get free lunch, or you can have a beer on a Friday afternoon and help yourself from the beer fridge. But I think the danger that happens with a lot of those companies is that, first of all, the presenteeism, so people who are in the office because they feel like they need to be in the office, but they're not actually really doing any work. And that was something that I was experiencing, that I'd be expected to be in the office until about 6 o'clock. But nobody's doing any work from 5, so why are you there? And it's all a bit of a front, really. And I think that is where you get a bit of danger, because the culture, what they believe the culture to be, is not what the culture's actually like.
Like, so, okay, like I've seen some, when I was working in Cambridge, there was a company I was working for where it was a software company doing sort of security software, and like you had the developers, and I was like working on like setting up meetings, so like I was like on the sales team. So it was kind of really strange, the sort of culture what went on, because it was kind of like you kind of saw it, the developers like sort of Silicon Valley-esque, if you get what I mean, like talking, sitting around, but you know what I mean, they're working hard, but it's like sort of burst. But then you had us, which had to be on the phones, like literally just bashing away, and that kind of was like, it was like oil and water, the sort of two different sort of cultural mindsets in that place. So it was like weird. That was
and yet they'll probably try and paint it in a certain way, but if it's a job where you have to work hard, but then how can you actually support staff, reward staff, and support their well-being that's actually going to help their well-being? For me, being able to finish work early on a Friday would have been I would have chosen that over a free lunch, you know, something like that really. And it was, yeah, I do think things are changing now and people are starting to wake up to the realities.
Yeah, I would say with regards to sort of flexi work, like with regards to timing or working from home or working in the office, I think with regards to Corona and the big mighty lockdown, I think that's like sort of accelerated everything on by say 10 years, because companies would have went, oh, we allow you to work a couple of days from home or anything like this, but they didn't, if you get what I mean. They kind of
Yeah.
like expect you to do that, but now it's changed.
Yes. And I think that maybe companies thought, oh, do people really do work when they work from home? But now you'll be knowing whether people are doing work or not. You know, you'll see it in however you measure it. So I think now companies are starting to switch on to the fact that actually people can work from home and they can be just as productive at home. I'm sure that research has found, I don't have stats exactly, but I know that many companies have been surprised at how productive their staff have been working from home. And I know it's not the case for everyone. And also, who would blame people if they weren't being as productive? Because it's hard at the moment. It's not normal working from home. It's working from home during a pandemic, which is not the same thing. So I think if people are managing to still get their work done, then that does say something to companies about, okay, is there something we can do here? Is this actually benefiting our staff? And don't get me wrong, there will be people that will still want to go into the office. It's not, you know, it's about finding that right balance.
Yeah. Like my lady, she is a sort of strong advocate. She often refers to Shawshank Redemption about sort of being institutionalized into like going to the office, and like, yeah, if she can go into the office, like I think she would like just set up a little camp there at this present time. So it's like and breathe a big sigh of relief. I don't think it's me, honestly, but that's another story. But she is definitely the type of person who wants to go into the office and sees sort of great sort of social benefits, if you get what I mean. She doesn't want to be, this is where I work and this is where I live, separate.
There is that. Yeah, I think there's always, it's about taking into account everyone's different circumstances. I've worked from home probably for about 3 or 4 years now, and I don't think I could go back to an office environment. I don't think I'd get anything done, to be honest, because I think I would be too social. But yeah, I think for companies now, they need to go through a fact-finding mission to understand, what do my employees want, and take into consideration that might be different for everyone.
Like with regards to like you mentioned some of the benefits they were going on, well, some of the programs they're implementing through like sport, basically pizza and like beer on a weekend, like on a Friday and stuff like this. I would say like one what comes to my mind, cycle schemes and stuff like that. What do you think are going to be some of the future changes with regards to that? Because seen as we're most probably the new normal, wherever that might be, might have a lot more sort of working less in the office and like having offices at say 60 or 70% capacity. How do you see that going?
Yeah, I think companies are going to have to think about how they tackle well-being now. If that's on their agenda, which it should be, then I think they need to be thinking about what is going to help their staff, because every company will be different. People will be employed at different life stages. You know, I think the needs of a team in their early 20s will be different from a team of people who are, you know, in their 40s and 50s, for example. So it's about understanding what is going to help people. I think a number of things. I think some of the things that I'm seeing companies introduce, which I think is a good step, is things like perhaps taking core hours. So hours of perhaps 10 till 2, where everybody's expected to be available and working through that time, but flexibility around the other hours in the day. And then that enables people to be able to adjust, particularly at the moment if people are managing childcare, food shopping, looking after elderly relatives. I think I think that's going to be key. And I also think about things as well, such as, because they're actually finding that people are experiencing a lot more burnout since working from home. And many people are actually working longer hours, which I don't know if that was expected or not. Certainly when I saw that people were really experiencing burnout, because you're at home, you can't really go anywhere. Your boss might think you're always available. Your working hours aren't perhaps stopping as clearly as they would if you were leaving an office. And so are you now being expected to reply to emails at 8 p.m. or, be at your desk early because you don't have the commute? And that's something that companies really do need to look at, because if people are burning out, and the signs of burnout include things such as, lack of concentration, not being able to problem solve as quickly, not being as intuitive, and creative as you normally are, that's not good for doing good work. So how can they do things like perhaps turn off internal communications after certain hours? And set, if companies are using something like Slack for work communication, you can set a company-wide do not disturb. So you could do that between the hours of, I don't know, 8 and 6 in the evening till 6 in the evening till 8 in the morning.
Sophie, you're a hard taskmaster. That's what I'm going to say. That's right.
I was thinking the wrong way around. But doing something like that means that somebody isn't going to be sat spending time with their family and getting messages from work that they feel obliged to get back to. Yes, they could still go into Slack and physically go and look for messages if they wanted to. But I think that is a company encouraging people, you need that break.
Yeah. I also think in that type of situation, I think it comes down to the company actually communicating, going, yeah, you know what, it's okay at this time to stop work.
Yes.
Do not answer emails. Do not go into that realm of communication, because I know there's going to be people like going, well, obviously, just set your boundaries and stick to them. But that's not everybody. And when stuff comes through, if you get caught in the sort of trap of if you've got work emails coming to your phone, looking at it and go, oh, I could do that real quick.
Yeah.
I could do that real quick. And before you know it, if you get into a crazy email chain, 2 hours have gone by and you're like going, oh.
And a key with this is it needs to be communicated, and it also needs to be mirrored by the people at the top as well, because it's all very well saying we don't expect you to reply to emails after 6 p.m, for example, but if your manager's still sending you emails after 6 p.m, then where's that expectation for you? So it does need to be mirrored right the way through. And you're right, it sounds like something very basic. It sounds like something like, is that really supporting staff well-being? It tends to be the simple things which are the most effective at supporting staff well-being. It doesn't have to be things that necessarily cost money. You don't have to be sending self-care packs to everyone in but if you've got the budget, great, but there are lots of simple things that you can do, and just communicating why you're doing these things, what the purpose of them is for, and almost having it written up as a wellbeing policy for the company. That just shows that you're going in the right direction, that you're caring about the welfare of the staff.
Yeah, this is the thing. I've seen people, especially with this time going on, like people sending long emails trying to convey information about what potentially could be people's futures for the next 3 to 6 months. And when it's a long sort of winded email, you kind of look at it and go, you've got Microsoft Zoom, just hop onto you've got Teams. Why don't you just hop on Teams, just do a general broadcast, you can get out to the whole company, and it gives people that sort of okay, I get it, and I'm a little bit reassured. And I just think the technology has been there for a long time. It's just now trying to utilize that technology. I don't think enough companies, well, are doing it, even though most of the staff are now working remotely.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's about making it human, isn't it? If you hear the CEO of a company expressing to you, and he or she is communicating that, it's much more powerful than reading it in an email, and much more easy to be human. I think now is not the time for emails that say things like, I don't know, we endeavour, or we regret to inform you. That sort of talk that you get from generic communication is not the time for that. Now is the time for a human touch.
Yes. One of the things, like with regards to, one of the things I kind of see as a potential stressor when it comes to sort of well-being in the workplace, especially over the next year or so, is in about, I'm saying from October onwards, the economy is most already going to be in that sort of realm of recession. Like, how do you see companies do you think companies are going to stick with that, or is that going to be like one of the first things to go?
In terms of well-being,
Yeah.
I certainly think that if companies are spending a lot of money on various kind of well-being initiatives, and they're perhaps not seeing the benefit from it, then perhaps some decisions might be made there. Although I do know that more people that work for companies are asking for more support with their well-being right now. And I think it's about finding out what that might be. So if if it does look like we're going to go into recession, financial well-being could be really important, and being able to provide that information to your staff. Yes, somebody could go on Google or YouTube and start to look into how to become financially stable, or how to have a budget, manage a budget. But to be able to have know that your company is delivering that information to you and trying to support you in whatever way they can, just makes you feel valued as it makes you feel like a person and not a number. And I think that that's the sort of thing that companies need to be thinking about. Not let's scrap well-being, because I don't think that's possible now, especially, but certainly thinking about how they deliver well-being initiatives is going to be the real important thing. I actually posted in a Facebook group that I'm a part of, which is mostly kind of young professional women, to be honest.
Okay.
And I asked them, what are your companies doing to support your well-being at this time? Just a general question. Thought, let's see what comes back. And there was lots of great stuff, and people, really wanting to shout about how great their company had been. But then there were a lot of people commenting saying, this has made me realise how rubbish my company has been. And that's the thing, is if companies can take this time to be there and show up for their employees in whatever way that is needed, it will be remembered. And if they don't, that will be remembered too, and not in a good way.
Yeah, no, I think, well, the reckoning will come to some organizations, some companies. Don't get me wrong, there is going to be stuff which is unavoidable, but I think treating your people good, treating them well when times are good is one thing. Treating people good or well when the pressure's on, that's a total other thing. And as you said, it shows caring, it shows value for them. And when you have that, especially when times are hard, you're going to fight harder for that company to make sure it goes forward.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think so much of it is about transparency. How transparent can you be as a company? Because if I'm sat at home furloughed, perhaps wondering if there's going to be redundancies or and not really getting much in terms of communication from my company, all that's going to do is increase my anxiety level as time goes on. Whereas if I've got the CEO of my company, and somebody had said that their CEO comes on a Zoom call every single Friday and says, this is what we're doing, this is what we're looking at, this is how we can avoid redundancies, this is how we see a return to work happening. It might not be the plan, but it's showing that they are at least trying to strategize and think of what they can do and sharing that with people. And I think I'd feel a lot more comfortable working for a company that did that.
Yeah, no, like this is the thing. I'm currently living that furlough lifestyle, so yeah, trust me, it is a weird place to be, if you get what I mean, because you're like, okay, I'm employed, but I'm not doing anything. This is weird, and like, yeah, there's part of me which is like, it makes no sense to do this, like the whole furlough bit, but yeah, when things kick off again, I shot fingers crossed, hopefully I'll be able to walk back into my job and like get things going. When you're working for an events company, like one of the worst things which about this right now, all events are gone, and it's pretty much like, when do you see events coming back? Like me personally, I'm thinking Easter 2021.
Yeah, it's unknown,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, yeah. I really wish I could like go, yeah, this is what it's gonna be, and like, yeah, take it forward right now. But when you've got venues not actually knowing what they're going to do for social distancing measures, like how can you hold an event if they don't know what they're going to do for social distancing measures to make that work? So it's a tricky time for many people in the events world, but yes, we persevere, we soldier on, to say the least.
And it's a good time to be starting thinking about what else do you want to do, like, you know, the podcast, you've got time to do the podcast, or what else, you know, what else can fulfill you right now. And there may still be an unknown, you know, financial in the distance or whatever might happen with the company, but I think at least finding things that you can do whilst you're furloughed that will fulfill you. And even I think they say 1 day a week of work is kind of what people want. That's what people can I don't know, I think it helps give you a sense of purpose. So it doesn't have to be, oh, I'm going to work or find something to do every single day, but to be able to find something to do 1 day a week that you feel like you're working towards something, then that will help as well with well-being.
Yeah, no, like I'm quite fortunate. I was doing this like started the whole podcast at the beginning of the year. I officially started in October last year, and then it was like there was a pause, then I like got on it, and like, yeah, people
you said that's what you do your early episodes as well.
Yeah, so I was like sitting there like talking into a microphone to myself, like going, yes, my name's Murali B. Blah, 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 blah. Now let me tell you, but I was like, no, I can't just do this. I'm bored of my own voice, so it's like, yeah, moving on swiftly. Got my first person on, and that went wellish. Put it this way, everything on my end didn't work. It ended up like he ended up recording it for me and then sending it over. Yeah, my realm into podcasting, how can I say, it has been a smooth transition, going over a rocky, jagged road where I was stopped a couple of times.
But you've got to give it a go. Done is better than perfect.
Oh yeah, no, just getting like grinding, getting them out. That's what matters. Yes, but nevertheless, found myself here today, and yeah, so far so good. Yeah, but to sort of go on the point which you just mentioned, yeah, doing something which is fulfilling for yourself right now, for people who have been furloughed, if they have been not touched by the disease which is out there right now, if they haven't lost anyone and it's a case of they're sitting at home, yeah, doing something they want to do, doing like basically maybe starting a new business, maybe starting a side hustle, might be like, yeah, reading more, learning a new language, anything like that. But anything what they can sort of engage with, like get their passions and juices flowing, so they don't miss this opportunity. This is a once in, God knows, a lifetime thing. And like, I'll be amazed if they'll shut down the planet all over again and keep everyone at home. Highly unlikely. But this getting time back and just like going, hey, it's a very precious commodity, and you realize when you do get it back, you're like, oh my God, I could do this. Oh my God, I could do that. And it's just a great time, a great opportunity for those people who are not being struck down by it.
Yeah, I agree. And there's so many free resources out there as well. So, you know, if you want to learn a language or do a course or something like that, there is lots of free courses. So it doesn't have to be something that's paid. We actually said, me and my partner, we said, why didn't we start doing Spanish at the start of this? And I guess the thing was, it all happened and we didn't know how long it was going to be this way for. You know, so we did probably the initial, which everyone did, have a good sort out, have a good clean, you know, all that kind of thing, sort out the kitchen. And then it sort of starts to drag, doesn't it? I mean, I've still been working. I'm getting ready to launch my new company, but I think to be able to do something and look back and say, this is what I did during that time. And I know there are a lot of people that are feeling a lot of pressure right now that aren't coping very well with feeling like everybody's achieving things and they're not.
Yes.
Just find your thing. Like you say, if it is reading a book that's been sat on your shelf for 2 years, or, you know, if it is learning a language or achieving something fitness related, it doesn't have to be something big and, you know, something that might sound impressive to someone else, as long as it's something that's for you. I think that's the key.
Excellent. Now, you just mentioned starting a new business and like around this time. Okay. Can you say what it's going to be about, or is
it? So it is FidlLeaf. So it is our workplace wellbeing platform. So myself and Adam, who's my co-founder, we've been working on it for over a year now.
Okay.
So we've been building we call it a wellbeing and personal growth platform, and it's quite funny because we were aiming to launch around about this time. We thought the summer of 2020. Anybody that works in technology will know that you can't really put a date on things because it always takes longer than you think it will.
Yeah. Okay.
But then, to be honest, everything that's happened has given us more time to work on it. Wellbeing has never been so important as it is now. So we have taken this time as what we see as an opportunity to get our platform launched in the next month or so.
Yes,
there we go. I've committed it now.
The next month or so. So if I come back to you on the 2nd of July, everything will be flying.
But
you heard it here, folks. The 2nd of July, 2020.
I didn't say the 2nd. You said the 2nd.
You know, you said a month from now, and that's the 2nd.
So yeah, I mean, for us, we've had a clear direction. You know, I've not struggled for things to do whilst all of this has been going on. It's actually been quite helpful for me being stuck here, because it's helped me to get on with it. But yeah, we're launching a platform where people go on, they have their awareness raised to 10 different key wellbeing areas. So we use some Nobel Prize nominated science from back in the 70s that measures these wellbeing areas, and then what people are given is their results, because I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't do, is actually how self-aware are people on various different aspects to wellbeing. And so what this helps do is really raise that awareness, and then we give them resources to develop and put a development plan in place. So it can be used by individuals, it can be used by companies. Originally our plan was always to sell to companies, because we felt that companies should be investing in the well-being of their people. But yes, so yeah, we've been very busy with all of that.
Excellent. Okay, nice. So it's going to be released in a month's time on the 2nd of July.
We're doing like what they would call in tech a beta launch.
Yes.
So we're going to allow a small amount of people through the doors. They'll be able to have a play really with the platform, get to use it, give us their feedback, and then we'll look at doing, a full launch later in the year.
So after they do the sort of self-assessment, what will they get access to after that?
Yeah, so the sorts of things that are measured, this is quite interesting, because I think I said this right at the very beginning, wellbeing can sometimes feel like a bit of a wishy-washy term. What does it actually mean? So these 10 different areas are things such as, it will measure things like your ability to cope with stress, and this is obviously in a place, this is right now, so it could have been different a year ago, it could be different in a year's time. It measures things such as assertiveness as well, which a lot of people don't associate with well-being, particularly workplace well-being, let's say. But actually, the more comfortable you are asserting yourself, that's not being bossy or aggressive, it's about respectfully stating your opinion.
No, it ties into what we said earlier about the whole work time boundary type thing, remember?
Yeah, and if people can do that, the chances are they're going to have better self-confidence, better self-esteem. So it looks at all these different areas, and it looks at how they relate to each other as well. And then that can help people really pinpoint where to develop. I think everybody's probably read a self-help book at some point in their life, and whether that self-help book helped you or not was probably based on whether that was what you needed at that time. And sometimes you find the right thing you find what you need at the right time, but sometimes you might need a little bit of help to have that awareness raised of, actually, if you could develop in this particular area and put your focus here, then it will help all these other areas as well.
Excellent. So with all of that, does that sort of tie into the wedding cake theory?
Oh yeah, so the wedding cake theory is part of something that we measure. So this is something that I tend to, if I'm ever doing a talk in public and I talk about well-being, this will generally be something that I discuss, because I think it's quite a powerful visual. And really, one aspect of well-being we talk about is the energy that you put into yourself versus the energy that you put outwards. So whether that is to other people, whether that's to work, whether that's to family, friends, commitments, versus what you put back into yourself. And most people, if I say, have a little think right now, where do you think that percentage lies? Most people give a lot more to others than they do. Put into themselves. Some people are very good, and they'll schedule time in their diary, or they'll commit to their whatever it might be, fitness or whatever that is just for them. But there are a lot of people that just don't put that energy back in. They neglect themselves, and I sometimes describe this as a wedding cake. Obviously, we're on a podcast, so I have to describe this visually. But if you imagine a 2-tiered wedding cake, the top tier, let me get this right, is work or external work or other people, etc. And the bottom tier is you, self or life. What would those 2 tiers look like? Now, if the ideal wedding cake, in order to support the top tier, that bottom tier would be nice and wide, fat. It would have a nice structure to it that would support that top tier of work and everything else. Most people's wedding cake would actually, the tiers would be the wrong way round. So I don't mean tip them upside down, I don't mean swap them around, I just mean that bottom tier of you, self, would be a lot thinner, or a lot there's no other better way to describe it really. The bottom tier would be a lot thinner, and that top tier of that energy that's going to everyone else would be much wider. Now the danger with that is, if all your energy is going externally and everything's going outwards, at some point, if you use that visual of that wedding cake, it could either collapse or tip over. So think about those two. And actually, the more energy that people can put into themselves to look after themselves, in terms of looking after their self-regard, working on their self-esteem, being less self-critical, being able to cope with stress and be more resilient, then
Yes.
actually that tier will support everything else much better. So that's
No, like for me, I'm looking at a picture of it right now. So
oh well, that's
yeah, like yeah,
ideal.
no, but when you're talking about, like, I find there are lots of people when it comes to the whole wedding cake, like, okay, like, rather, like, it's either totally focused on self and there's hardly any work on top, and then it's a case of they somehow don't see why things are not working their way, or it's there is, like, take off self and just put work, and it's just one big bottom tier, and that's all they do. And it's like, yeah, when it comes to themselves, it's neither here nor there, and they kind of fall away. And if you took work away from them, that's everything gone, their whole
Yeah,
identity and their well-being.
yeah, and it can be work, but it can also just be, you know, what people do for others. Not saying it's not a great thing to do things for other people, but if you're not dedicating that time to yourself, if you're not fulfilling yourself outside of work, then yeah, it can definitely have that imbalance. We find with our research is that actually 93% of people, their wedding cake is the wrong way round. They don't have this solid foundation of self. And you know, you see a lot nowadays with young people experiencing more mental health issues. You know, there's sort of millennial generation struggling more with mental health than any other generation. And why is that? And it's down to not being resilient, not having good self-esteem, not feeling comfortable being assertive, all of these things. So that is really, I think the first step is to have a think about, what would my wedding cake look like, and then start to identify, how do I now start to deal with some of these things.
I can't be saying what would my wedding cake look like yet. Before I know it, I'll activate the powers of my lady, and she'll be like, so what would that look like? Oh, God. That's, with regards to sort of young people, millennial syndrome, you mentioned resilience. What would you think would be something would be to install resilience in the next generation, or people now, today? Because I think there are many people across the broad range, from Gen Z to
Yeah.
like boomer.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? I don't think I can give a silver bullet kind of answer to all of this. I think it's definitely difficult. I think when you look at particularly what young people are facing in terms of things like social media, self-expectation. I mean, I grew up, I'm so glad I spent my teenage years without Facebook and Instagram, and you know, none of that really came into play at that stage. I think we were still on the Nokia 3210 when I was a teenager. And I'm grateful for that, because, you know, the pressures on young people today in terms of having to look a certain way and behave a certain way, and it is tough. And I think people should think about how they can support themselves. What can they do? And it's going to be different for everyone, in order to build sort of coping mechanisms for things like stress and pressure. For a start, think about how they can build a self-esteem. So what doesn't work? You know, if you're following, I give an example, that if you're following a lot of people on social media that don't make you feel good about yourself, or make you feel like you're comparing yourself to others, then that's not healthy. So what can you do to change that? And I think it's going to be different for different people. Very difficult to answer that one. Me. I think it's continuing. It's not something that's happened and gone. I think it will continue. The pressures on people today, and how do you overcome that? Expectations from others onto you, but of yourself as well.
Yeah, no, with regards to social media, like one of the things people need to remember, that social media quite often is people's highlight reels.
Mm,
It's not their whole day to day. It's a highlight of, this is how good things were for me today. Or like, if they've got an agenda to sell something, this is how good you can look if you like take this tea, drink this tea, or do my exercise program, or like if you want to be financially aware, like more better off, this is what you need to do, like buy my course. So it's one of those things when you're getting all that information like coming at you, especially at a young age, you kind
hmm.
of you you're not aware, or you're not going to be strong enough to like go, oh, okay, wait, this is your highlight reel, or wait a second, no, I don't really need what you're offering me right now. So, I'm perfectly fine the way I am. I think
Yeah.
that's the tricky one.
Yeah, and I know that there's been a good movement of people, going against the whole everything being massively photoshopped or is still out there, but and things like these teas and this, that and the other, and drink this and you'll have a body like this in 2 weeks and blah blah blah. I think that people have wised up to all of that, but obviously it's still going to affect, it's still out there. I think yeah, it is a tough old world when it comes to all of that. If you're sensitive, and if you some people, and that's the thing, some people can look at pictures of, they could scroll through an Instagram feed full of beautiful bodies and they wouldn't let it
Mm,
affect them, because they've built that resilience already, that no, I don't look at that and aspire or feel some kind of way because of what this picture is provoking in me.
yeah.
But I think it's about that. I mean, one thing that we're trying to do a lot with our platform is focus on bringing in support content
Hmm.
that is by people who are millennial, generation Z, etc. So one thing that we found is that, if, let's say, you want to work on your self-esteem and
Yeah.
you're a 23-year-old girl, just put yourself in that position for the moment, um,
Sorry. Yes.
then actually to have if you're of that demographic, and there's I don't know, some professor, no offense professors, who are middle-aged white men with grey hair, but having someone like that talk to you about self-esteem might not get that connection,
Mm,
because it's not relatable.
yeah.
And what we found when we've been looking and doing some initial research into the platform was, we found people who were of the 23-year-old girl age demographic
Mm.
talking about self-esteem on YouTube or on podcasts, that people were really starting to relate to it. And they might be sharing content that they've read in a self-help book that maybe has been written by a middle-aged man with grey hair, translating it in a way that makes it relatable and
Yeah.
makes it it helps people to connect. And so that's something that we have really gone quite heavy on with our platform, is using content that's been created by people of the demographic of our users,
Mm.
and hopefully we'll see what the results of that will be.
No, I have a sense there will be like a YouTube channel with you guys having either a loose women type situation, or a view like aimed at sort of 23-year-olds, or like, yeah, that millennial like demographic.
But the one thing that we're conscious of as the two founders is, we're actually slightly out of that demographic now. I mean, I'm an old millennial, so they'll probably be looking at me thinking, this girl's too old to be talking about this stuff. So we want to bring in a lot of creators that can do all of that.
So you're on the quest to seek out talent to
Yeah,
speak
we
that.
are, and we're really also really conscious that we are, both myself and Adam, we are two white people of a certain age, and actually we need diversity, and we
Mm,
need to have everybody represented, because that's so important today. And I
mm.
think that that's something that is a bit difficult right now of lockdown, and is something that we would have wanted to have had when we initially launched, but it's something that we're going to be really conscious to get right going forward.
Yeah, no, like this is the thing. It's going to be tricky during lockdown, but I think if like the talents out there, there are like people who would be very willing to, of the sort of age demographic you're after, who would want to talk. And like, yeah, and I know it might be a little bit strange, like for some of them, like all of a sudden you appear in their DMs, in their Instagram, like, hey, you want to talk about like workplace well-being? Huh? But I think, yeah, knock on a few doors, and I do this from like my sort of realm of being a person who calls people on the telephones to get like that sales call in as my daily profession. Like, yeah, contact sport with that, and the more people you make contact with, I think, yeah, before you know it, you'll get those people you need in there and get your platform chugging away quite nicely, you know.
Yeah.
But
we want that. We want to be able to, you know, be relatable for as many people as possible, really. So
outstanding. I'm liking this. Oh, very good. Yes. Like, you're also an author. Like, how many books have you written so far?
Just one. So that was a project.
One
just
more than
the
me.
one. That one was enough. I think you'll find you probably find this of what you've said with the podcast and everything, Miwa. But you know, you think, how hard can it be? And that is generally kind of my motto with a lot of things. And that's why I end up getting myself into these things where I say, let's write a book. And
yes.
You think, and funnily enough, I always say I have my best ideas while I'm lying on a sun lounger somewhere on holiday and think, let's write a book. And then, you know, a year and a half later, and it seems like the worst decision. But so previous sort of life for me, I was working for my dad's company. My dad's a performance coach, and that's probably where I get a lot of this sort of stuff from. And my sort of you know, I've gone slightly off kilter from him, but he's more focused on leadership coaching, and he works in a couple of very specific sectors. So he works with sports, so he does a lot of work with various professional sports. He does a lot of work with the project sector, so the people building all our sort of major infrastructure around the UK. And also with social care as well. So various different care companies, and delivers leadership workshops into these sectors. So generally taking people who are perhaps about to be promoted, maybe sort of team leader level, getting up to the level where you're first managing a team, and then perhaps beyond that, you know, deputy into manager type level in different industries. And that's quite often the stuff that's not taught. So you get taught how to do your job, you get taught how to do your paperwork. You don't often get taught how to have a difficult conversation with a member of staff, or, you know, how to lead a team and get them to see your vision. So he wanted to write a book, and we started with the social care sector just because that's the sector that he works most heavily in. And we thought it was going to be very easy. I mean, anybody who does sort of any sort of consultancy or training or anything probably think the same as we thought. This is what we do every day. All we need to do is write it down. It's a lot more difficult than that. But it's out there now, and it's great to have that. You know, a lot of people spend their life saying they want to write a book. Technology makes it easy for you. Amazon self-publishing is, you know, it's a faff, but it's so easy. It lays it all out for you, and anybody can become a published author through that. So I'm glad of the experience. I'm glad it's over. Not least because my dad's dyslexic as well, so he sent a chapter to me.
Just like that's not spelled correctly. It's like okay, Dad, yeah, right. Okay, I see what you're trying to do, but you just left out about 4 or 5 words. Okay.
Yeah. It presented an additional challenge, let's put it that way. But no, it's turned out really great, and we're hoping to translate it to different sectors as well, because the messages about how to lead teams or how to lead yourself, how to lead the culture, it is adaptable for any type of working environment.
What is the name of the book which has caused you so much trauma?
It's called, do you know what? I've got a copy right here. It's called The Care Leader's Handbook.
Okay, nice.
And it's really just practical guidebook, really. We wanted it to be something that anybody could pick up and read, and not, fall asleep reading it. And it's just, like I say, that the main focus is firstly leading yourself, because even if you don't lead anybody else, you're the leader of yourself. Leading others, managing a team, etc. And then leading the culture, which is, I think you need all three, really, with leadership. And culture's often forgotten, or again, a bit like well-being, it's not tangible in that sense. What is it?
Yeah, no. Okay, no. Great. I'm sorry I brought up the book. It's like
is it going to give you an idea of writing one now as well?
Look, put it this way, I've spoken to people where, on the podcast, where one lady, Georgiana, she was like, she does yoga and holistic, and she was like, I had 2 weeks off from work, and I knocked out 270 pages over 2 weeks. I was just going, I listened to her say this. I was like, what? I went, proofread, bam. Yeah, it was out there. I was like, okay. I went, okay, my second book, it took me longer. It took her, I think, 8 months to a year, because she was working at the time, so she can devote her time and focus. I swear to God, I was like, you kind of listen to that and you're like, what?
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, we started by saying, let's take Friday afternoons and we'll start writing on a Friday afternoon. And we mapped out all the chapters, and all that stuff was quite easy because, like I say, it's what we were doing anyway. But it was when it got down to sort of the nitty gritty of it all that it just started to get very time consuming and very frustrating. It's a love-hate relationship, really.
Yeah, because I can imagine it's like, okay, we're going into detail, but how much detail do we go into? And I can see that sort of getting more and more in depth before you know it. Like if you had 10 pages for a chapter, that could easily go to 20 or 30 pages like that.
Yeah. And do you know what the worst thing about writing a book is? Once you've written the book and you think that you've finished writing, people start asking you to write blogs promoting the book on various websites, and you think, I thought I'd finished writing now, but then you have to write some more.
Oh dear.
So I would say, it would probably be easier to write a book by yourself. I would have thought, if if you've got something, I definitely recommend checking out Amazon. They call it KDP, which is their self-published sort of site, does it all for you. And it was, it wasn't a costly thing to do. And it's definitely been worth it in terms of, the kind of value that we've got from the other end, in terms of people engaging with us because you're an author. It's
no, like all good. Now while we've been talking, and we were talking about them again, like finding millennial talent for your platform, I was thinking, with regards to after lockdown and when people go back, I think there's going to be a lot of people within your age group to my age group who are going to really want to consider some of their life choices and transition as well. You might want to just keep an eye on those guys as well, because I think it's not said now, But I think there's going to be there's going to be a lot of people which are like going, what I was doing for a job or where I was going in my life, I need to do either a complete 180 or just jump out of this sector or just follow a dream I'm after following.
Yeah.
I can see that happening over the next year or two.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I've even seen that in people's posts on Facebook that they're writing about, you know, I want a fresh start or a change or this time next year, that kind of thing. I agree with that, definitely.
Yeah, I can just see their boss like going, "What's this, Stephen? I didn't know we were friends on Facebook. Damn it!" But yeah, but yeah, no, but definitely. I'm going to ask about speaking. Hopefully this doesn't bring up any sort of trauma, like writing a book. This is the whole thing. Like speaking, how did you get into that? Because like I've spoken to a few speakers, but the pathway has always been slightly different.
Yeah, it's so I mean, as a background, as a kid, I was very into performing and, you know, drama and music and that kind of thing. So I think that's a good start. I think definitely from doing all of that gave me the confidence, I guess, to feel a bit more comfortable getting on stage.
Yes.
I think probably one of my first talks in terms of, you know, at like an exhibition or something like that, is talking probably about well-being and speaking at an expo, just being given a slot basically to talk about something. I think we were paying for a stand anyway, so quite often you can get that. It's a good way to start because it will get you practice. And that is obviously, I think with anybody that does sort of speaking at events or, you know, professional type speaking, it normally starts with you paying to speak. And then at some point it flips and you will get paid to speak. And I think that's, so I've had a lot of practice, speaking at events where initially it was the fact that we paid for a stand, and then I think if you get a reputation as a good speaker within a certain sector or community, then that people will want to book you more as well, particularly if you give value. I think it's always important that talks need to tell people what you're going to give them, then give that to them, and then if there is any part of a sales pitch, that has to come right at the end. It has to be very, very short and sweet and snappy, and then that's it really. I mean, the wedding cake theory I always get asked to speak about because I think it's quite visual and a lot of people can relate to it, and then I think things start to pick up from there. For me, I'm getting quite a lot through LinkedIn at the moment as well, and I know you're quite heavy present on LinkedIn as well.
No, I sort of go through ebbs and waves now. I'm like, because of the podcast, I'm trying to find like good people to talk to, and like, you know what I mean, with regarding to interesting topic points. I go through my sort of free usage a little bit quicker and quicker these days. That's like making me look at it and go, I'm gonna have to pay at some point.
Oh no.
Which is painful to say the least.
Always. But I think that, and if anybody is wanting to get into speaking and they want to do more speaking, LinkedIn is a really good place to almost, I don't want to say advertise yourself, but if you've got a niche that you're in, I mean, Workplace Wellbeing, I think my Instagram says the OG of Workplace Wellbeing or something on it. But it's, you know, it's in my title on LinkedIn. There's a picture of me speaking on my profile. There's clips. And then I publish a lot of stuff, so blogs. We published a workplace wellbeing guide in February that just went absolutely crazy. I had 500 messages from people asking for the guide.
Outstanding.
And I think things like that will really help, because then people start to see you as an expert in that field, and then it just starts the ball rolling, really. You get asked more and more.
Yeah, no, like building your authority, building your brand
Yeah,
reputation, let's say, uh,
yeah,
in that sector. No, no, that's good. Like, because yeah, it's one of those things where every time I hear someone goes, yeah, like speaking, everything like this. I believe the gentleman's name's Winston. He was like going, yeah. Um, started speaking, and then like there people were like going, yes, we'll pay you to speak, and he's like going, excuse me, what?
yeah.
I was like, what, you want to pay me to speak? It's like shut up, you fool, they're paying you money, take it.
Yeah. And then you do get the whole, imposter syndrome starts to creep in. So you
Mm,
start to feel like, oh, hang on a sec. And that's definitely happened with me. I think particularly as well, when I sort of started in this industry, I was probably quite a bit younger and look
mm.
quite young as well, and then you think people are going to think, oh, what does she know,
You still look young, shut up.
I know, I'll take it, but and I think yeah, so you've almost got your own sort of things that you have to deal with when it
Yeah,
comes to that. But I think consistency, if you know your subject and you continue to learn and research,
mm.
post about it, show up on social media, etc., then people will start to pay attention, and then opportunities will come your way.
Perfect. No, no, I'm loving it so far. It's all good. And like, yeah, like with that, you became a podcast host as well. You've got many hats. Like you're many hats indeed. Like as I say, yeah, speaker, author, podcast host.
Yeah, I don't know whether to take that off my LinkedIn actually, because I
Really?
don't host the podcast anymore.
Ah,
So I think I did 6 series, and then finished it because it was more associated with the work that I was doing with my dad,
I
and
see.
because when I started working on FidlLeaf and working on the platform,
Mm.
I needed to free up some time, so I finished the podcast. But it was exactly the same as what you said at the start of yours. Don't really know what's going to happen. How hard can it be? I'll figure it out along the way. And I think a podcast is a really good idea. If anybody
Mm.
is, it's, you can do it free or very, very low cost to set up. And it's a great way as well to, I think, build your confidence in talking to people, perhaps before you go and talk on stage.
Mm. No, yes. No, I I imagine if you are going to do a podcast for FidlLeaf, that's going to be something like a next year
We are.
project. Okay, there you go. There you go. It's like it feels like I'm reaching into your mind right now.
I mean, because we're going for that, the fact that we're building a platform that is for that demographic of millennial Gen Z,
Mm,
we know that we need to be producing a podcast. We know that we need to be on YouTube, and putting out free content as well as the content that's on our platform. So that's something that is on the list.
okay, yeah, no, that's fantastic. No, because like this is the thing. I think people when they sort of hear about starting up a new business, starting up a new venture, they go, oh yeah, podcast, yeah. YouTube, yeah. Medium, yeah. And I think they don't actually take them seriously as a sort of realm of sort of building authority, building a reputation, to then like help it lead on to like your actual platform itself to go,
Mm,
okay, we've given you this information, we've shown what we're worth. Like, yeah, now you've come over, you found value in what we're saying.
mm-hmm.
Like, let's do business.
Yeah,
And we can offer you some more. We've offered you quite a lot here, but if you want a little bit more professional, like more in depth and more bespoke to yourself, come join us and we'll see what we can do.
definitely. Yeah, and it's about, I think it's people, I think you've always got to be aware nowadays as well. If you run a company or if you work for a company, you've got the company, but then you've got the brand of yourself as well. And I think now more than ever, the people behind the company are as important as the brand. So I think, yeah, how can you work that? How can you use all this technology and resources that are available to help people get to know you. Because if people like you and people associate with you or relate to you, then they're going to relate to what you're building or what you're doing.
Excellent. So FidlLeaf, like right now, the launch of FidlLeaf by the 2nd of July is going to happen. So so what would you like to say happen at Christmas and basically Easter next year?
Yeah, going forward. Oh, that's funny, because me and Adam had a big chat the other day. Obviously, we see each other a lot, but we haven't seen each other at all since lockdown. So we've had lots of Zooms and to talk about things. And we had a Zoom the other day where we said, right, what's the mission? What's next? And I think we would like to get to a stage where, and hopefully that will be next year, where we have got the platform that people are using. And I think the most important thing is that if people are engaging in something that's supporting their well-being, they're consistently engaging in it. It's not a sticking plaster. It's developing yourself is something that takes time. So we want to see usage on the platform is a goal for us. We would like to be able to produce a lot of research as well, so we want to be sharing our research hopefully before Christmas. We'll have some initial stats and research to share about, like how I said, 93% of people have the upside down wedding cake, to be able to talk about things like that. And then hopefully we'll be in a place next year where companies are engaging and starting to roll it out to their teams. Like I said before, we believe that companies should pay for these products. I don't think it should be down to the individual to pay for it. Companies really should be investing in the well-being of their staff, because they will get the rewards of people being more productive as a result. So, but yeah, apart from, I don't know, I guess we probably have to have our podcast and YouTube launched by this time next year. So I'll say that. I'm worried about what I'll say, and Adam will listen back to this and then he'll kill me for saying too much.
Okay, what I'll do then, I'll ask you to tell me, so Adam doesn't kill you or anything like that. Most already look him up later and go, okay, that's the one, officer. He's the one. That's why she's disappeared. If you can give people how they can get in contact with you, your social medias, your media, your website, all that good information.
Yeah, the good information. So I would say FidlLeaf.com, which is spelled FidLeaf. That's our website, so you can find everything from there, all our social media. And then me personally, I'm generally Sophie Coulthard, so on LinkedIn, on Instagram, etc. I post a lot of stuff. I talk a lot about wellbeing on all the channels. So yeah, anywhere really.
Perfect. What I'll also do, I'll put that information in the show notes and the description, so they'll be able to find you. But yes.
Yeah, and if anybody wants, from what we were talking about earlier, if anybody is a creator, if anybody is talking about these sorts of topics that I've been talking about today, and they want us to take a look at their content, share it, get involved in some way. What I would say is we're completely self-funded up to this point, so we have no money whatsoever, and we are determined not to take funding, as was a decision that we both made quite early on as well, that we did not want to look for investment if possible, or we didn't want a company to come in and invest in us and then change the way that we do things, or make it about sales rather than about the mission that we're on. But we hope to be in a position where we can really start to bring some people into the team in the near future and grow.
Superb. Hopefully this podcast will help some of that growth.
Thank you.
But yeah, I got to say, Sophie, pleasure. Like Adam, wherever you might be, she didn't give away too much information. But yeah, I got to say thank you for coming on the podcast today. It has been an immense pleasure. And yeah, giving the insight and where you see workplace well-being could be going. Yeah, I think it's needed. I think it's going to be one of these things where this is just the starting point
Mm.
for a lot of it. And whew, God knows what it's going to be like in a year's time. Fingers crossed. Nice, safe, happy. But
Yeah.
And I'll be able to go out and give a friend a hug. There you go. But thank you for coming on. You've been brilliant. You've been fantastic. Hey, and I've got to say, thank you very much, my friends, my life warriors, for watching up until this point. Stay well, stay safe, be excellent, be fantastic, be awesome. Be all the positive bees you can be in this world and more. So thank you. Have a great day and peace. Yeah. Oh, there we go.